everyone, and I would like to welcome you to this special edition of our podcast, where I will be interviewing the St. Thomas staff in its glorious entirety as you see us before you. Since we can't be with you in person, we thought that it would be fun to do something mostly lighthearted. You can see our faces, you can see us together, and get to know us a little bit better. We have some particularly spectacular questions from St. Thomas Kids members, so I'm really looking forward to that. Joining me today, we have Father Daniel in our bottom right corner. We have Tex Bagley, our associate, our pastoral associate, and then we have Chris Segan, our director of music, and I am Haley. I am our director of family ministry. So our first questions are regarding our church. I had a lot of people ask just a very simple question: why are you on staff at St. Thomas? Just go Chris, Tex, and then Daniel, and we'll answer the questions one at a time. Thomas.
Well, because Father Daniel called me and emailed me, and we started talking every week for about 7 months about the vision for St. Thomas in Athens, Georgia. Since me and my wife Britta were living in Kansas City, and as he would continue to describe the culture of Athens, the opportunity to do ministry in Athens, it just became increasingly more clear that God wanted me and Britta to move to Athens to begin helping out with the work that Daniel had already started. And so we are here because we think God's doing awesome things in Athens. And so, and I think we thought up to this point, and we still think up to this point, that God is doing awesome things through Father Daniel as our fearless leader. And we're super excited and happy to be a part of what God is doing here in Athens. And it's an awesome town. It's just an awesome city, right? Come on.
It is. Agreed. Hometown. Okay, Tex.
So Daniel and I guess we started talking, this was before he moved to Athens. So it was, what year would that be, Daniel? 15?
Years ago.
Anyway, yeah. Before he moved to Athens, I was, my wife and I, we had been at a church in Rome, Georgia, an Anglican church, and the bishop came and visited, and Marissa and I met in Athens and always had talked about the possibility of moving back here, helping plant a church, and just felt at that point in our life we were called to the Anglican church. And I asked the bishop when he came to visit, hey, what's going on in Athens? And through a series of conversations with different folks, he ended up on the phone with Daniel. And Daniel was saying, hey, we're considering moving to Athens at the time. I think actually our first conversation, he was just a few months away from actually moving to Athens. And so anyway, once the Atkinsons got here, Marissa and I came and visited him and their family, and just had a relationship start from that stage. And we moved to Athens about after a year after they had been here, kind of getting things going. And we jumped in, and we've been with St. Thomas since then. So it's just absolutely love it. Kind of what Chris is saying again, just an awesome city. We love Athens. We met here in school, and just have always thought that this is the type of culture that we would like to be in, and to see people grow in their spirituality and their faith, and then go out to the rest of Georgia and all over the United States and all over the world, really. And so we were excited to be able to have an impact on people's lives here in Athens. So that's why we jumped in.
I will go next. So how we got on staff. So probably a decade ago, I was on staff at a large Anglican church outside of Dallas, Texas, Christ Church in Plano, Texas. I went on staff right as I was finishing seminary, and we were there for almost 10 years. But towards the early part of that was right when the Anglican Church in North America was forming, and there was a big emphasis on church planting. So I actually had the chance for a couple of years to work with church planters and to organize conferences and meet with leaders around the country doing that. One of those was Tim Keller and his team at Redeemer Presbyterian Church in New York. They then became the Redeemer City to City Network. And back then we were asking Tim Keller, hey, we're a new church, the Anglican Church in North America. We had about 500 congregations. What would you recommend for our church planting focus? And he said, if it was him, he would put all energy and money into planting in university towns. He said that's the most strategic thing you can do for a number of reasons. And so after that, I had gone to school at UGA. My wife and I met while we were in school here in Athens. And so every time I saw Foley Beach, who was at first, when I met him, he was the rector of Holy Cross. And then I met him as when he was made the bishop of the Anglican Diocese of the South, and then talked with him again when he was made archbishop of the ACNA. Every time I saw Foley, I would kind of do a text and say, hey, what's going on in Athens? Because I had this thought that we should be planting in college towns. I had gone to UGA and just thought there needs to be a vibrant disciple-making liturgical church there. I was intending that maybe someone else would do that every time I asked him. And then over time, it became clear that the Lord seemed to be drawing us in this direction. And so that was a big step for us. At the time, the church I was on staff at was the largest Anglican church in North America that was part of the ACNA. And so when we moved to Athens, our church was our family of four. And so I joke that I probably am the only person to overnight go from the largest to the smallest ACNA congregation. But we're here, and we've loved being here the last few years and seeing what the Lord's doing in St. Thomas. And it's really nice. I said originally there were just four of us, our family. So it's been great to see the team, both staff and lots of other leaders who are really contribute significantly to the life of our church and what God's doing in and through it.
I am at St. Thomas because I became really close with Holly Atkinson. We were teaching together at Westminster Christian Academy, and when you are teaching pre-K students and sitting on a playground for several hours a day chatting it up, you get really close. And it was really cool for me to see what God was doing at St. Thomas, having no clue that God would actually lead me to be on staff there. So that was neat. I remember when Tex came on, when Tex moved, I remember when Holly was so excited that Chris was coming on staff, and I'm like, this is an amazing church. Like, I need to go visit. This is really cool. And I remember the Lord laying it on my heart to pray for St. Thomas, and I just felt this like interest to see how the church would grow. And then one thing led to another, and now I'm here. So, all right, the second question that I have is, why are you Anglican? Start us off.
Good question. So I grew up in the Episcopal Church as a kid, so I am pretty familiar. It's been kind of built into my DNA, the church calendar, a liturgical expression. And so even when I came to a much more vibrant faith when I was around about age 30, when Britta and I got married, just soon after we got married, we tried out some other churches that, great churches that were really preaching the gospel and were trying to reach those that did not know Jesus. But I always enjoyed, especially when I could find churches that had that liturgical rhythm and following the church calendar. And so I sometimes feel like I'm the Michael Corleone of Anglicanism. It's like the times when I've tried to go away, it keeps pulling me back in. But I really do think, and it's really become particularly important over the last 3 or 4 years of my life as things have been considerably sort of upended, and God has called Britta and I into things that are a little bit scary and frightful. Having that regular, just steady rhythm, especially on Sunday worship, and then the spiritual disciplines and the practices of doing the daily office, and just having the beautiful the traditions of the rhythm of the prayer book has been just incredibly helpful in grounding my faith, grounding both me and Britta's faith as a couple. And so, and I just love the liturgical, as a music director, I love particularly Anglican liturgy, because it isn't about performance. It isn't about necessarily looking good or trying to, it's really wonderful for everybody to participate along with with lay people, the congregation, with pastoral staff. It really is a beautiful picture of God's people worshiping together and participating together in a variety of ways. And so I just love that about the Anglican faith. So, yeah.
Nice. Well said.
I'm pretty much just because C.S. Lewis is an Anglican. Was an Anglican. No, I'm joking. No. That was a big reason, though, to be honest with you. No, I grew up in a Christian family, and I call myself kind of a denominational mutt to a certain degree. We were kind of just, we helped plant churches growing up. We were in non-denominational churches. We were in Pentecostal churches. My grandparents were Baptists. They were hugely influential in my life. Other friends that were really good friends that were Methodists, so I would go visit Methodist churches a good bit. And then when my wife and I, we moved down to Mexico when I was 22 years old, I think, when I moved down to Mexico and started working with a nonprofit ministry in Mexico. And we would work with just all different denominations would come down to and work with us. And I guess I would call myself interdenominational at that point, meaning that I just, I saw there was a lot of benefits with all different aspects of the church. And so anyway, I guess when we came back to the States, and actually when we came back to Georgia, and specifically, we were looking for church, and I had been to the only Anglican service I'd ever been to, or the first Anglican service I'd ever been to, was a good friend of mine's ordination service. And I was just kind of blown away. I remember leaving that service talking to Marissa and just kind of being in awe. There was a lot of cool things happening in the service. And obviously there's people in robes, which I was not used to, the collars. The bishop smacked the guy in the face when he had ordained him. And I was like, what's going on here? I thought it was just kind of a neat, different experience for me. But anyway, I walked away from that just very curious about it. And then I started reading more about it. I think I read Canterbury, Evangelicals on the Canterbury Trail, read some more Lewis, just different things. I got kind of reading more about church history. Anyway, for a lot of different reasons, just kind of found a home in the Anglican Church, and really just felt called to be there. I just really like it. I don't know what else to say other than those things.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good enough reason. All right, Daniel.
It's a great question. I grew up Baptist in Georgia, which is not uncommon, and really kind of came into personal faith through the ministry of Young Life. And so great parachurch organization, ended up being a leader with them while I was in school at UGA, ended up on staff with them in Dallas, Texas, and even now my wife and I serve on their local committee. We're big fans of Young Life. But kind of with that being really where I found vibrancy, figuring out church was tough. And so while we were in Dallas, there were different streams or different types of denominations we explored. And the other unique thing was we're doing that exploration while I'm in seminary. And so I'm reading people that are influential. I would say that my personal devotional habits really shifted during seminary. Before that, kind of if I was going to do something to grow, I would just read a lot of Bible. And that's how I grew. And I'd pray a little bit and read a lot. And then in seminary, you don't have as much of a drive to just devour large amounts of scripture because you're doing that day in, day out. And so someone introduced me to the daily office, which is just our structured way of devotionals. It's really focused on prayer and scripture, but it's not trying to learn. It's not a learning mode focused way of approaching the Lord. And so that really helped me in seminary remain connected vitally to faith. and started reading Bishop N.T. Wright, who is a well-known Anglican.
We knew that was coming.
Yes, it actually can be a little controversial in other settings. And we were going to a church in Dallas that was kind of liturgy light. They had a word and table shape to it. Confessionally, they said we're a Nicene Creed church, and had a mentor there actually recommend that we look in this direction. He said, you're going into ministry, and basically you need accountability and you need colleagues, because everyone does. So he was saying that the independent, non-denominational road, just there's some real shortcomings in terms of vocation. You don't have colleagues, you don't have accountability. And he said, and honestly, the 39 articles of religion, which are from the Anglican Church, are about as good mere Christianity as you can get. It's solidly, robustly Christian, but you can also change your interpretation of a verse or two and not have to resign on Monday as a minister. And so we immediately kind of took that and began exploring, and it fit like a glove. We interviewed at a church, Christ Church in Plano, outside of Dallas, and then we were there about 10 years, which is a really, there were lots of ups and downs, but that was our story. Once we found it, it fit us really well, and it's a place that we feel like our gifts really complement and are used well. And we're seeing lots of our peers, kind of as I always thought about my non-Christian friends. I think there are some approaches that do reach folks, but my friends were really kind of nerdy and thoughtful and artistic and sarcastic. And I think some of our more seeker-oriented churches, they would just sneer at. And so part of the drive has been that I think there's a place for both deep discipleship and community, as well as a real potential to reach those maybe who won't be reached by the evangelistic efforts of some other churches. And that's probably even specifically why planting an Anglican church in a college town, that has a lot to do with that as well. So,
yeah, that makes sense. So my first exposure to Anglicanism was my swim coach was an Anglican priest, and I really loved him. I loved his family. So I had some really good conversations about Anglicanism. So when Holly first, when we met and she told me why y'all were here, I was like, oh yeah, I know the Anglican Church. And she was like, wow, that's new. But I think the journey really started for me in being attracted to a liturgical setting was my mom's family is Greek. And so growing up, we would go to Greek festivals and Greek Orthodox churches. And I remember visiting and being like, hey, I want to go to the service. I want to go to the iconography lecture. And then I minored in art history in college, and I was very drawn to a lot of art that was used in liturgical settings. And it really was an avenue to interest in church history, which when you study church history for the West, it does lead you to Anglicanism. So that was kind of like the overarching why this is drawing me in. But my friendship with Holly led me to visit St. Thomas, and I fell in love with it. And like you, Tex, I just really like it. It fits like a glove, and I love it. So, okay. Now, our next questions are regarding the greatest city on earth, my hometown, none of y'all's hometowns. Sorry about that. Athens, Georgia. The first question is, and it's controversial. Where did you grow up? So what's your hometown? And which do you like better, your hometown or Athens?
Mine is pretty easy to answer as well. So I grew up in suburban Atlanta. And so most of my upbringing was in Lawrenceville, right off of what is now 316. There was no 316 then at the time. I got to know Athens coming to play soccer games. All growing up, we would play the Athens Y and Athens United, and they were really good. And then came here for school. And so I would say that Athens is definitely cooler than every suburb of Atlanta.
Good answer.
Yeah, I'll jump in and just second that. I grew up in Cartersville, Georgia, which I like Cartersville. There's nothing against Cartersville, Georgia, but I left when I was 18 and kind of never looked back. I love Athens. I spent, I love it here. We went to college here, met here, Marissa and I, and so a lot of good memories. about that. And so, yeah, Athens definitely is my favorite.
Okay, so I grew up in suburban areas on the Kansas side of Kansas City in the greater metro Kansas City area. So, but a lot of the suburbs in Kansas City generally have their the little areas have their own kind of little niches to it. It's not like living in Kansas City is not like living in, say, like Atlanta or New York or Chicago or other much larger metropolitan areas. um, Kansas City does have kind of a bit of a little bit of a small town feel to it already. And so um, and then I also spent quite a bit of time. I went to University of Kansas and went and lived in Lawrence, Kansas for about 10 years. Um, and Lawrence and Athens have a lot of similarities to it. And I loved Lawrence. I love that kind of, it's big enough to have fun, cool restaurants and music and art and things to do, but still small enough that you can really experience the whole thing. So when we moved here to Athens, there's a lot, it actually, a lot about it felt very, very familiar, especially to Lawrence. I love a college town vibe. And so I know this is kind of a diplomatic answer because I'm not going to throw my hometown under the bus, but there are a few things I miss about Kansas City. However, being able to live in a college-like atmosphere of Athens but with considerably better weather for much longer parts of the year is awesome. And I love that things are green, and I love that things are just beautiful and flowers, and there's just a little bit more of a laid back vibe in Athens than I would say even Lawrence had, and especially more than even the Midwest is still pretty laid back, but there's a chillness factor that it reminds me a little bit of like a Southern California vibe here, which I love that. And so as I'm verbally processing this, I'm making a pretty good case that Athens is pretty awesome, and I love it here. Yeah. And I think it might be the coolest place to live. Just saying, sorry, Kansas City, if you see this and think that I've thrown my hometown under the bus, but it's pretty cool.
Well, that's the correct answer. And if you haven't, those of you watching, if you haven't already figured out, I was born in Athens. I was born off Prince Avenue. I grew up off Tallahassee Road. Well, basically lived my entire life at the various sports facilities at UGA, and I still think it's the greatest place to live, and because it is the greatest place to live. Okay. There were lots of questions about Athens, but for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to our quarantine questions. The first quarantine-related question is, what has been your favorite thing to do in your free time? With the assumption that you've had free time.
I will say, because I do have some recording equipment, I will say that even right out of the gate, before we even like sort of officially decided as a church to offer some live streaming things, I was pretty, to some degree, a little bit excited, like, oh yeah, I've got a computer, it's got a webcam, I've got recording gear. Let's do some music, things like that. So that's actually been kind of fun. Being in seminary and being forced to stay at home, it has given me more time to study, which has been good. And I would say too, because thankfully, due to this awesome realtor that we know down here, that helped me and Britta get this awesome house in a really fun neighborhood. It's been fun because we're forced to explore the neighborhood, enjoy our backyard, that's the nice thing that this quarantine is going to happen, for it to happen in the spring and the summertime. We have been able to enjoy the beauty of our own backyard, which has been fun, and get to know some of our neighbors. So there you go.
Yeah, it's funny. I was telling some folks recently, I think I've talked to my neighbors more during this quarantine than I have in a while. We have some great neighbors that live behind us. And I feel like, you guys maybe I'm dating myself, but I used to watch the Home Improvement with the guy that did what was his name? Anyway, I can't remember. But anyway, Tim Allen would go talk to his neighbor. And so me and my neighbor behind me, we go to the fence and we just talk. We've had several conversations like that instead of actually hanging out. And then we live on a main stretch in our neighborhood, and so it's a circle neighborhood, and so we get a lot of walkers. And so I sit on this front porch quite a bit. Any work I do it out here because, as many of you know, I have 3 small children that are out, and we live in a 1-story ranch, and there's not really many places I can go. But yeah, I've actually talked to several of my neighbors just that have walked by, and I'll stand out in my yard and they'll stand out in the street and we'll just sit and chat. And so it's been that's been, I think, probably one of the most fun things. Then also I bought a big chop saw, so I've been doing a lot of stuff around the house. I like doing housework, so that's been
nice.
Some of my favorite things.
Let's see. So the fun thing I've been doing is picking up a really old hobby. And so before I met Holly, I had quasi begun teaching myself guitar while in school at UGA. But then I met her dad, who plays professional classical and jazz guitar gigs around Atlanta. And so I think just seeing his expertise and my level of expertise, and then having seminary and small kids, I just kind of put that to the side. And so as I was thinking about kind of this time at home, I said that would be a good creative thing to kind of pick back up. I knew I had some really bad habits because I had taught myself. And so I am starting from scratch, kind of relearning and using Fender Play. They're doing a free, it's free for right now during the quarantine. And it's kind of on-demand lessons. And so that's been really fun, going through and
nice.
doing some creative stuff in that way. So
when can
nice. Well, I know a really good guitar player that can help you out if you need any.
Right.
When can we expect to see you playing with Chris on Sunday? That's what.
Yeah, we might have maybe 2, 3, 4 years down the road, we could have a switch and
nice.
let him come and preach, and I'll lead music, as long as I don't have to sing. I can sing okay with people. You don't want me leading on a microphone. I've learned that the hard way.
Nice. I picked up the ukulele, so we could just have like a St. Thomas staff trio. Tex, you just have to learn like the mandolin or
you got a harmonica.
banjo.
Okay.
There you go.
Get the box drum. Get a little,
yeah.
You're percussionist. You got rhythm. I got a cajon over here. We'll get you going.
Yes. Nice. Okay. This is one of my favorite questions, and you have to answer it honestly. Pretend that you are hooked up to a lie detector test. If you had to be quarantined with only one other staff member, who would it be? I'm going first. I'm picking Chris. I mean, like, music in the house all the time. Britta's super cool. So yeah, Chris, yeah. But you have to answer.
Oh man, I'm going with Tex. Just.
Oh.
Well, I can't let.
Because he's super chill. He's funny. You just never know. You just never know when the Tex mantra of just let it play out. I think my curiosity of actually seeing certain things play out in Texas world is what I want to be around for.
I don't know if it comes with my kids, so it might be a little loud. I would have to go with Daniel. I mean, really one of the main things is he's sitting behind a whole library, and I think at least it would be quieter than it is here, and I could actually catch up on some reading, and so I think I would go Daniel.
Nice. So I'm gonna go
pity pick.
Little curveball. So we have one staff member not on our Zoom, which is our business administrator, Mamie. Yeah. And as the rector of the church, I try to make sure that the bills are paid and we're doing good financially. So I think I would want to be connected with Mamie, so we make sure everything is staying on track.
Well played. That is a good choice then. Okay, so now we are entering the most profound group of questions from our very own St. Thomas kids, and I will not say their names for the sake of security, so these are all anonymous. The first one is a very good question, and it's, why do you like to help people? Chris.
I love seeing, that they say the light bulb goes off, I love helping people, especially if it's something that maybe I know a little bit about, and helping people not just tell them how to do it, but to help them do it. And then all of a sudden waiting for that moment where that little light bulb goes on and you just go, yay, this is so much fun. And then seeing people get excited for themselves, I think is always, I love that moment.
Yeah, why do I like helping people? I like helping people because it feels good, and it feels right. I think that's probably the best answer I can give, is just that, I enjoy, I love being able to, I'm kind of a people person, so I like being around people anyway. I get energized by it, and when I get to help somebody out, it's just a really good feeling, and it makes me feel like I'm kind of fulfilling my purpose that I'm here for.
I would agree. I think it's fun to watch both the light bulb go on, as well as helping people connect, and helping them in that way. So one of the things that's been fun for me over just the last really probably year is when you're first kind of getting a church plant going, most of the relational connections are with you. So folks connect with the pastor, they connect with the staff. And so it's been really fun to watch and help people get connected with one another, and really watching friendships form and begin to really flourish in the church. It's really fun to kind of shift that relational focus and watch that take place.
I would say for me, when I'm not helping other people, then I'm just thinking about myself, and I'm not very happy. I think that I'll be happier when I'm selfish, but when I'm selfish, I'm not. Mm-hmm. And it makes you feel better. Okay, another question. Do you get to go out? Sorry, do you get to go outside? That's the question.
Yes.
Yes. I'll go outside. I'm really pasty white, but I do get to go outside.
I even get to do Zoom calls outside.
Pretty awesome. Yes, we all get to go outside, which we're very, the question might have been coming from a child who doesn't get to go outside very much, depending on where they live. I know a lot of people live in apartment buildings, and sometimes they don't get that opportunity. And fortunately, all of us do. So that's really nice. We have yards. Okay. Regarding outside, we have two outdoor questions. The first one is, do you have any flowers?
I do. And then they went away when it got rainy and windy. We had flowers. Just came and they went, but hopefully we'll get more.
Yeah. I have a lot of flowers. A lot. That's been my favorite thing about quarantine. I have a lot of flowers.
I would say there are flowers at my home. I don't think it's fair for me to claim them in any possession.
Yeah.
Because I contributed nothing to them.
Tex has a flower. Truth. Is that an azalea?
Yes.
Nice. Okay. The next question regarding outside, do you know what blue irises are?
No.
And my answer is yes, I do.
I don't, but I bet if I was to go to the garden club on campus, I'm sure you would see a lot of them potentially. It's just a hunch. Or at the botanical.
There might be some at the botanical garden.
There could.
I think the implication of the question is that if you don't already know what they are, then you should.
Seems fair.
So y'all need to look up blue irises, which Daniel's probably doing right now.
I'm doing it right now.
Okay.
Yes.
You have it pulled up? Okay. Now, before our lightning round. Oh, wait. Hey, blue irises. There they are. Beautiful. They're very beautiful. I think the questioner was implying that these are her favorite flowers. So I think she'll appreciate seeing that. How does Father Daniel make the name badges every week?
And this is from one of our kids. So we're actually a very low tech church for the most part when we gather in person on Sundays. But one of the things we do have is a computerized check-in system. And that check-in system has a magical device connected called a label printer, label maker. And so we buy, it looks like name tag stickers. It goes in there, boop, and then the computer makes it print on those fancy labels.
I think he wanted you to say that you used the Force, so I think you've just disappointed him.
Okay. Well, there are little dinosaurs inside the printer, and they actually paint them by hand with crayons.
Nice. Painting with crayons. That's
Yes.
new. Interesting. Okay. For Mr. Chris, how long has Mr. Chris played the guitar? He's really, 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 really good. That is a transcript from the text.
So sweet. I am now 50 years old. Ooh. And I've been playing guitar since I was 10. So I've been playing 40 years.
So longer than any of us are been alive.
And really, I say it now, which I appreciate that they say that I'm really, 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 I think there was about 6 reallys there. I should probably be better if I've been playing that long.
No, you are amazing.
Very sweet. And I've been playing a long time.
You're amazing.
I have the calluses to prove it.
It's also been that long since UGA football won a national title, unfortunately. So.
Way to ruin that moment. Okay. Text. Now, there are lots of levels of implication in this question. I don't know what any of them are. I won't project my own opinions on this. But the question is, would Mr. Text shave his beard?
Would I shave my beard?
Yes. I don't know if the implication is that they want you to, so there's a please attached to that, or a hypothetical, would you ever be willing to shave your beard?
You know, I have before. It's funny you should say that. Just this morning, Abigail told me that she hated it when I shaved my beard. Just randomly told me that this morning. She said, I hate it when you shaved your beard. Because I did. I shaved it, I don't know, maybe about 2 years ago, maybe at one point, and she didn't recognize me. And so, yeah,
wasn't having it.
I probably wouldn't shave it if I had to, I would, but I wouldn't do it by choice.
Nice. The question directed towards me, and I quote, how did Miss Haley become so smart? And the answer to that question, that very perceptive question, is that I went to the greatest university in the world, the University of Georgia. And that is the answer to that question. Okay, we are in the lightning round.
Ooh.
And so you have to, it's a one-word answer situation. Okay, chocolate or strawberry cake?
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
Strawberry.
Oh, chocolate. Okay, Slinky or yo-yo?
Yo-yo.
Yo-yo.
Slinky.
Slinky. Yeah, especially the one from Toy Story. What is your favorite book?
I'll go with my favorite of the last few years. I'm going to say Celebration of Discipline, Richard Foster.
Whoa.
Nice.
Probably Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis.
I really like Dostoevsky, so I like his The Brothers Karamazov.
My favorite is Prisoner of Azkaban from the Harry Potter series. That is my favorite book. Okay, so who do you think? I swear this is an actual question. Who is taller, Miss Haley or Father Daniel? Chris.
Well, Miss Haley if she's in heels.
Well answered.
Father Daniel, you're taller, man.
I think, actually, I've not been cutting my hair during our time at home. So as my hair continues to grow out this direction, I am continuing to exceed Miss Allen's height.
Yeah, he is taller. But Chris is right with heels. I am taller. Whose hair is longer, Mr. Tex or Miss Haley?
I think Mr. Tex.
I think Tex's hair is longer. I mean, if you pull it out, it's a little bit, but I think Texas is longer.
I don't know. I'm pulled back right now, but in the quarantine, it's gotten even longer. So I think I might.
If Miss Haley has done the flat iron, then it gets longer. But
once again, Chris is the most perceptive. Okay, our final question: unicorn or mermaid?
Unicorn. Definitely.
Mermaid.
Yeah, mermaid.
I'll go with mermaid.
Mermaids win. Team Mermaid wins. Oh, thank you so much, guys, for your time today. I hope that everyone enjoys getting to know us on such a deep, profound level.
Nice.
And I hope it brings a smile to everyone. And just so everyone knows, we're available. Please contact us if you need anything. If you just need someone to talk to, we are here for you. And we hope to see you all soon.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.